Hey there, emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm Victoria from Expats Everywhere's podcast, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you, YouTube travelers, and our resident of Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kaylee. Each week they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, Josh delves into the intricacies of living in the Algarve with the relocation expert Nick Robinson. They discuss its diverse towns, cultural shifts, and the growing community of digital nomads.
Hey expats and travelers alike, welcome back to Expats Everywhere presents Let's Move to Portugal podcast. Kaylee, how you doing?
I'm doing well, much better than I was a couple weeks ago when I had the flu. It was terrible. But really well because last week we traveled and that was a lot of fun. It was cold, okay, Sweden and Denmark at this time of year cold, but a lot of fun. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, recovering from the travel.
The travel,
from the travel and staying away from you.
Yeah, I was in quarantine.
But I felt like I was in quarantine, sleeping on the couch, so I didn't get sick the week before we traveled. Listen, if you're new here, listener, we really appreciate you being here. We want to let you know real quick the format of this show. We start out with Victoria giving us an intro to what the episode is about. Then we jump into this part where we call it the weekly welcome, where we want to welcome you to what's happening in the world of expats everywhere before getting on to the interview. And it's with someone that maybe is familiar. If you're familiar with this kind of moving to Portugal, living in Portugal space, Nick from Algarve Addict joins us and want to first catch us up to speed on what's happening in our world. So Kaylee said we took a trip.
We did take a trip. Yes. I think one of the highlights was in Sweden. I mean, it was cold. There was snow on the ground still. Thankfully, it had snowed right before we came, but it wasn't while we were there. It was actually sunny, which was nice. But there was snow on the ground and we were in this heated outdoor pool. So
cool.
That was
my
cool.
first time.
Yeah. And it was a very nice place. So that was cool. The only bad thing is I think being in like the water and then coming out of the cold after 2 or 3 days, my face was really dry. Even though I was moisturizing, my face was really dry. That was the only downfall, but it was a cool experience.
Yeah. We're actually going to vlog about it. As we got going, we realized this would be a pretty good opportunity to vlog about a cool place that's brand new with a relatively small or maybe mid-size hotel chain. Mm-hmm. Mainly in Sweden, I think, but I believe they might be in a couple other, a couple in Denmark. But wow, what a trip! I actually, it's been a long time since I've had a trip like this where I have felt like reinvigorated with the travel bug.
Oh, interesting. That's news to me.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So this is a wonderful thing about living in Europe. Just living abroad. I won't even say Europe. North America, it's a little more challenging because you travel like thousands of kilometers and you don't even get out of your country.
And it's more expensive too, right? I mean, if we're talking about flying and it's far, if you go from East Coast to West Coast, for example. Yeah,
but in Europe and Asia for sure, in South America, I guess, but maybe more so in Europe and Asia, it's really easy to get around. It's really cost effective
South
to get
America
around.
is not cost effective.
No, that's what I'm saying.
South and North America.
That's why I'm
hard.
going with those two. Yeah. And our limited extent of traveling to Africa is kind of the same way. It's difficult. It's more difficult.
So Europe and Asia, really.
Yeah, it's really easy
Southeast
to get around.
Asia.
Just Asia in general. I think it's really easy to get around both of those continents. Mm-hmm. But since we're here in Europe and we're able to travel more of Europe and take opportunities of. Basically, it was 100 per person, 100 euros per person round trip to be able to go from Porto to Denmark to Copenhagen. And then we rented a car,
3 hours.
Which, by the way, if you're interested in renting a car from Copenhagen and going into Sweden, be prepared for the toll price.
The bridge is very expensive, overly expensive. I don't know why so much.
Yeah.
Last time we did that, we took the train. So I guess we hadn't realized how expensive the bridge was.
Yeah.
And we just got it included so we could go through like the automated toll part with the rental car. Yeah. And I think when we looked at the breakdown, it was like about 50 euro.
50 euro
each
one way. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. 100. I don't know. It's a nice bridge, but I don't know why they make it so expensive.
It ain't 100 euros nice.
It was an easy drive, though. I will say that. That's what's nice about Denmark and Sweden, especially since we didn't catch snow, so we didn't have to deal with any of that. But they have, big lanes and it's spread out. So comfortable drive for sure.
Yeah. The rental was like 70 euros thereabouts. I want to say the gas or the gas charge fee, whatever.
It was like 30
euros. So
we're doing conversion because obviously they use
Krona.
Yeah.
Crowns. So basically we paid 100 for the car, and then we paid to get the car over and back 100. So 200 for that transportation.
Yeah, which isn't bad. We had it for 3 days, I think, right?
The car? Yeah, 3 days.
3 or 4 days.
So 5 days total on this trip, but 3 of them we had the car, 500 euros for transportation. So 3 for the flights, 2 for the car.
For the 3 of us. Yeah.
Not bad.
Not bad at all.
Not bad.
It was a good trip.
Now, we did keep costs low in Denmark because, boy, they are proud of their crown.
It is very strong right now. Very strong.
Very strong. So we didn't eat out very much. We ended up getting grocery store food for breakfast and dinner.
That's so funny.
For both days.
I felt like we ate a lot, though.
There.
I was so full by the end. I was like, I don't want to go to a restaurant and have a meal. I just need something light, like a salad.
Yes. When we were in Sweden, we definitely filled up with amazing food at the hotel we were staying at. That was Sugar Hill Estate?
Mary Hill, I thought.
Mary Hill, sorry.
Yeah.
Sugar Club.
Yeah.
Sugar
one of the I think restaurants is called
Mary Hill, yeah. Sugar Club.
Sugar Club, yeah. And so you're thinking about the restaurants.
Anyways,
food.
So that was that. That's been our past week, but we're back here. We're back in Porto. We're feeling good.
Yes, I would say, well, last thing on the Denmark and Sweden, we are going to put out country guides on Expats Everywhere Explore, so you can see a little bit about those. But then also on YouTube, on our main channel, and then in the podcast last week, we've talked with Allison from Moving to Spain about resources for Spain. Because like we know that a lot of you listeners are interested in both Spain and Portugal. There's so many similarities. So we want to have connections and resources, reliable, vetted people, companies that we can work with in Spain as well. So they've been really good.
So a lot happening, not about Portugal, but that is not why you tuned into this podcast, unless you just wanted to hear from us. We talked to Nick Robinson from Algarve Addicts, and we actually talk a lot about kind of the evolving landscape of what is happening in Algarve, specifically talking about, digital nomadism, people relocating to Portugal, especially there, and kind of just how that all is evolving. What do you think?
He's a great resource because obviously he's in Algarve and he's been there for quite a while, and we're up in the north. So it's nice to, we travel and we visit in the south when we can, but he knows a lot more about it. So he's a really good resource to have. He's got his channel. They have some real estate stuff that we can connect you with if you're interested in that. But he's just a fun guy too.
Yeah.
Just a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Fun.
And even though we talk about some digital nomad stuff going on, we do highlight areas that people that want to be more long-term residents, people that, let's say, are more retirees, what they're looking out for in Algarve, why they're moving there, where you can find what in the different cities, towns.
Yeah.
Nick has a ton of these resources, and we really dive into kind of what the changes have been since the first time we chatted with him and now. So we kind of go through what the past 3-4 years have been like, especially happening in his region, and his take being married to a Portuguese person, raising a kid as well.
All right. Well, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, but before we do that, let's talk about this week's sponsor, Green Ocean Global Advisors.
Yes, we always recommend, no matter where you are in the moving process, to get your finances in order. So that's in your home country and then the country that you're moving to.
And speaking about homes, what if you sell your house before leaving or do it after? What are the capital gains implications like? Well, a financial advisor will be able to walk you through this type of thing.
And what about distributions? Maybe you have a 401k or a pension and you need to figure out how much you should be drawing from for the lifestyle that you're going to have.
Now, you can use this link in the description section below to talk to John from Green Ocean Global Advisors to see if he's a fit for you. You'll have a free 15-minute consultation just for being an Expats Everywhere listener. So you can use that to get your free 15 minutes. Click the link in the description section below. Now, on to the show.
Nick, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to talk to you today because you're our guy in Algarve. You have a channel that's based around Algarve. You've been living there since 2001. So you're the guy to talk to, and you've got an exciting project coming up that we'll talk about in a bit. But let's dive into Algarve. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for having me, Josh. It's great to see you again. It's we've known each other for some time, so it's really cool to reconnect and on your fantastic podcast. I've been listening to quite a few episodes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. No, it's a pleasure having you here, and we're excited to get to connect with you again because we connected for the first time a little over 3 years ago, I guess it was, since Kaylee and I have been here for almost 4. We met up in the summer of, 2021. And
in Faro, I think.
Yeah, we were able to meet up in Faro. I have kind of mixed feelings about that city, which we'll talk about. But you cover Algarve with your channel, Algarve Addicts. Tell us a bit about what you're doing on the channel and what Algarve is all about.
Okay, well, so the channel started in November 2020, essentially, when I made a video called Where to Live in the Algarve. And it went pretty crazy. It went well. So I thought, wow, this is great. Let me reinvest in this. And I started making videos every single week. Generally, I made videos about every single town in the Algarve. Now we've got a playlist of about 36 videos of 36 towns in the Algarve. And people love it. It's great. So it went, and a couple of projects that I've done since then, because obviously over 4 years, you can't just make videos about towns in the Algarve.
Sure.
I decided to walk all the way across the Algarve because I enjoy a bit of outdoor stuff. So we started walking from Villarreal, Sant Antonio in the east, all the way to Sagres in the west, but it was kind of a bit of a cheat, actually. So we'd just do like one day at a time, and then a month later we'd catch up from where we left off. So it wasn't all in one, like an incredibly sort of exhausting experience. But what was amazing was going through all the towns again and again. And just like last night, I went down to São Brás, my local town, São Brás del Portel. And if you can say that, you're doing well. And just looking at all, the towns in different seasons and towns and when different events are coming up, that's completely different. I just went down for a little sandwich with a mate of mine in São Brás and just chatting about people in the town and stuff. It's just really, really lovely to experience these towns as they grow because everything in the Algarve is changing so quickly. It's crazy.
Yeah, which is something that I want to talk about. But one of the first things that I'd like to discuss with you, because I really don't have the answer on this. Many people talk about Algarve and it's a region, but if we say something is Algarve, is there like a stereotypical Algarve, or is each town quite different from one another where we should be talking about the towns and the cities of Algarve more than just talking about the region? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think when you say the Algarve or whatever, because some people like to say the Algarve, other people like to not say that. So that's another thing. Yeah.
Which is it, by the way?
I don't know. It's whatever you want, man. I just say the Algarve, but I think technically it should be just Algarve. But anyway, whatever rolls off the tongue. And obviously the image that comes to mind is sort of beer swilling expats, tourists, not expats actually, like on the beach in hotels, getting drunk, having a great time, and just sun, and nothing to do with culture, nothing to do with history, nothing to do with food and all kinds of cool stuff. So, I think there's definitely a myth to be unlocked there, and there's lots more to the Algarve. And often when I speak to people who are foreigners and been living up like in Óbidos around there and northern Portugal, they kind of sort of poo-poo the Algarve. Say, that's where the tourists go. It's not really Portugal, and it's it's trashy and stuff. And it is in many areas. But there are other areas which I love, and I love to explore the Algarve. And I've done quite a good job of it over the last 23 years. So
you absolutely have. So there's a shift in the seasons as well in the Algarve, correct?
Absolutely. And there was a project by the tourism board called Algarve 365 quite a few years ago to try and sort of just get rid of the seasonality, because the seasonality was extreme. And even still today, they still haven't solved the problem. I mean, you go down to Lagos in the middle of winter, not much is going on. All the restaurants are closed down. Well, not all, but I'd say 80% of the restaurants are closed down. All the little villages along the coastline that are typically survive from tourism generally shut down in winter because there just aren't the people. And it's not because it's a horrible place to be. It's because the flights are, dried up. So all the flights start getting less and less during the middle of winter. But it's still, I mean, I look around sometimes in October and there's beautiful weather, and November, and there's no one on the beach. It's crazy, you know. It's just, you could be enjoying yourself down here, but no one is. Not no one, but.
So, I mean, would you say that it's an ideal place for people who like less crowds, or would they have to kind of do the whole like north-south, 6 months here, 6 months there type of dance?
Well, you can pick your thing, but obviously, in the middle of August, it is pretty crazy, and the thing is, it's crazy when you go into places like Vilamora, Albufeira, Lagos, because that's where the tourists come and they fly in. And it's not just tourists from Northern Europe and America, it's tourists from north of Portugal as well. So, sure. I mean, Lisboetas and Porto people, what are you guys called?
Portuense, tripeiros, if we're being informal. Yeah.
Tripeiros. There we go. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you guys all come down, it really adds to the mix, and then the whole country tips over and we've got, full on. But even in the middle of August, you can still find some places which are not that populated and not that busy. Because the point I was trying to make was that when tourists come down, they generally stick to the accommodation that they have. Not many people are traveling all the way along. They're like, some people have hotels, and then they stay in the hotel, they stay close to the hotel, and they just walk.
Right. So, well, that's certainly true, because, I mean, speaking from anecdotally, I guess, we have plenty of friends from the UK who, when they come, they're like, hey, we're coming to Portugal. And I'm like, I am in the north of Portugal, and you're going to the south of Portugal. So it's like still 5.5, 6 hours for me to get down there, or a flight, I guess. But, I mean, that's, again, me jumping on a plane to go meet them when they just flew on a plane to come to Portugal. So it's a little strange. But
it happens to me as well. I mean, some guys, sure. I live in the east of the Algarve, well, like sort of central Algarve, and some guys say, look, I'm on holiday in Lagos. Do you want to pop over for coffee? And I'm like, well, dude, that's like an 80-kilometer there and back trip. I mean, it's 160 kilometers there and back,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. So it's like they're going to visit somewhere in Algarve, usually Lagos or Portimao or one of these, and they'll just stay on their little hotel compound, beachside resort. So they're not getting out and really exploring everything that the region has to offer. So, but I think as foreigners living down there, it's much easier to explore and see more of the culture. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, generally we've got a car. When you're on holiday, you don't always have a car. Some people do, some people don't. But I've just been on a holiday to Tanzania, which is amazing, and we didn't have a car. But so we sort of basically stayed in the resort quite a lot of the time. We went to go and experience a bit of the local vibe, and it's difficult to get out and about and do the proper traveling thing when you're a tourist, if you know what I'm saying. So
yeah, I do.
But yeah, as foreigners and living here, we definitely have an opportunity to explore and go to all these different festivals around, and because obviously there's like almost 500,000 people living in the Algarve, spread out over the 150-kilometer wide region, and there's so much going on in each little town. Even if it is a little festival of chorizo or something, it's still fun.
Nice. I didn't realize that there was 500,000 people in the region. So if I'm doing my math right, that's about 5% of the population, or a little under 5%, because I think we're above 10 million right now in Portugal. Interesting. Okay. So you talked earlier about doing this 36-city guide, if you will. Like you've got a playlist of 36 towns and cities spread out all across Algarve. What are your top 3, let's say, that you really like? And then what are some cities that you feel are ones that you're not a fan of, and that other foreigners that go there just don't click with, don't vibe with?
Yeah, that's kind of a complex question, because
I know,
there's a lot.
I know.
Yeah, but it's cool.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, we got time.
Yeah, we got time, which is great. So I think starting off with what I say is the 4 major places that expats and foreigners and immigrants like to move to is, number 1 is Lagos, number 2 Portimao and Cavuero area around the Rudd River, and then there's a western section just west of Faro, the whole of Lolé basically. So if you go from Lolé town down to Almancil, Vilamora, and also São Brás del Portel, that sort of crescent to the west of Faro, is very popular with foreigners. And then Tavira as well. And there's a small enclave out in Villarreal, San Antonio. But so I suppose those are the four main things. So it's Lagos, Portimão, Lole, and Tavira. So, and I when you say what I don't really like, I mean, every place has its beautiful spots, but I'm not that mad about Portimão. Although I have spent some time down there with the Portimão Digital Nomad group. They're a fantastic bunch of people, and that just changes your whole view on the place because they're just vibing and you're connecting with really cool people. But yeah, Portimão is quite an interesting city. It's almost on a tie with Faro as far as population goes. Mm-hmm. And if you include the whole area around Portimão, it's actually larger urban population. So there's a lot of people living there. There's a lot of stuff going on. Probably about 60,000 people, if I'm correct in remembering my stats. So yeah, and as far as my most beautiful spots that I love, I just love Salema. Which do you know where it is?
No.
It's right down in the west, just west of Lagos. So it's between Sagres and Lagos. And it's an old fishing village, and it's just. A couple of our clients have actually moved there, and they love it. It's amazing. I've been there a couple of times. It's beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, we have not been west of Lagos yet to see kind of what's over there. We've not been to Sagres. Maybe that's partially because there's a beer named Sagres, and I hate that beer. I much prefer Superbock. So I want to stay away from Sagres in that way. But no, I mean, I should probably check it out. I mean, interestingly enough, its geographical location makes for kind of cool waves, like interesting scenes, right?
Yeah, it's wild down there. And what you're saying is really true because the train line just goes to Lagos and it doesn't carry on. So it makes it a little bit more difficult for people to get down there because buses in the Algarve are kind of fun, kind of an adventure. If they turn
like sarcastic kind of fun.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I mean, to be honest, I haven't had much experience on buses, but I just heard from people, and I actually have had a couple of bus trips, decided never to do it again, but I need to maybe get on a mission and do like a whole bus route all over the Algarve and see what happens.
Well, surely you've paddled that way, no? You're a big paddle boarder. Yeah,
I've paddled the Algarve twice from Sagres to Villarreal San Antonio, all the way across, 160 kilometers. Yeah. And obviously lots of little bits and pieces in between, go down for a day in Lagos and paddle around there. And so, yeah, I've seen every single grain of sand, which is fun. But there's still the west coast of the Algarve to conquer, which is a bit more hectic because the waves coming in from the Atlantic, it's more like Porto beaches,
Yeah.
It's a bit rough.
You wouldn't be able to paddle that, right?
Yeah, we tried once. But
you could? Okay.
Yeah, we just got to pick a day, you know what I mean? So.
Oh, right. Right, because if a storm system's blowing in, the waves are going to be much more fierce. Yeah?
Yeah, and then it's really tricky to try and get through the waves back to the beach and, scary
You
stuff.
had me out on a paddle board, but I mean, it was much calmer.
It was flat. It was flat, Josh. Yeah, completely
exactly.
flat.
I felt like we were in a lake,
Yeah, it was just outside Faro in the Rio Formosa. There was, it's beautiful and flat, right in the flat path of the aircraft coming into Faro.
Yeah, it was stunning. Yeah, if anybody has the opportunity to check out Rio Formosa, it is unreal. Like it is
gorgeous.
Amazing natural beauty. Really a great spot to kind of clear the head, especially if you go solo. But if you go with friends as well, awesome place.
And that brings to mind Faro because I know you're talking. I don't know if you want to talk about Faro now, but
please,
So. I also wasn't that keen on Faro from inception. Same. When I arrived in 2001, I was like, it's grotty, it's dirty, there's graffiti everywhere. And then over the years, I've been going back because it's kind of a little strange enough. It's out of the way because it's not on the main highway or anything, and there's no reason to go there except everybody flies into
Flights
Faro.
Come in.
Yeah, exactly. So it's out of the way for us if you live here, but we'll go into Faro for services and things like that. Like they've got what's it called? A Loja Única. What's it? Loja Única or something there, where you get all your bureaucratic stuff done.
Loja Cidadão.
Exatamente. Yeah, Loja Cidadão.
Yeah.
So, but I've been going back over the years and we've been finding more and more amazing restaurants popping up and bars and coffee culture. And the old town is quite fun these days inside the walls of the castle, which is getting better. And I made a video there probably about 2 years ago where we really connected with some local, like a lot of locals, and chatted to people. And it was quite an eye-opening experience because there's an amazing hotel there called the 3HB, which is a new 5-star hotel. And it's kind of setting the trend. And I think things are popping up, it's sort of evolving from the inside, but there's still that crusty exterior, which you see as you drive through. So
yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I felt. We created a video after spending 3 weeks there. We created a video about the two Faros, and there's the one, and I apologize to any Portuguese listeners as we anglicize some of these Portuguese words, Faro. So we stayed actually kind of out, well, pretty far out of the historic center. And we saw much more of maybe like Portuguese life and what that was like. I personally did not like the way the city was laid out, kind of the infrastructure. Everything looks very samey, kind of boring. In the city center itself, very cute, very quaint, but it's very small. Compared to other towns and cities in Portugal, it's a very, very small kind of old city center that, I would assume that a tourist could go there and do it in like half a day, right? Would you agree
from a
with
tourist
that?
perspective, yeah. I mean, it's been a non-starter as far as tourism goes. Nobody has ever been to Faro. They always land in Faro and then they head out to the west coast or the east coast or whatever. And so it's been interesting to see people actually opting to stay in Faro for a couple of nights just to explore the food, because there's some really great restaurants coming up and some really cool rooftop bars as well, looking out over the marina, just around the Hotel Eva and the Hotel Faro. And then again, you've got what we talked about earlier is the Rio Formosa, and you can just jump on a boat and head out to these incredible islands. And there again, I don't know if you went out to the islands, but a lot of people rave about the islands and say they're so amazing. I got out there and I was like, well, what's this? It's like a couple of buildings and hardly any people and a few sort of crazy paving. But it is interesting because there's no cars out there and there are some beautiful spots and the beaches are pristine, gorgeous, super clear. And I've paddled out there quite a lot and it's fantastic.
Nice. But you're not a big fan of the islands themselves, or you just don't see what everyone raves about?
Yeah, I mean, when you're calling it the Maldives or the Maldives of Portugal, that's just, it's not.
It's a stretch.
I mean, it's a stretch.
Like Aveiro being the Venice of Portugal.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like it has canals, but come on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people love to do that, don't they? I mean, I'm sure we've put some crazy titles in our YouTube videos over the last 4 years or so.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier you talked about a shift that has been happening kind of all across the region. What is this shift? What are you seeing happening there?
Well, I think from a foreigner's perspective, there's been a large increase in luxury real estate sales here, like 15% over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So with that, there comes quite a lot of other services. And obviously when a lot of that kind of wealth comes in here, then there's people having to, gardeners and pool guys and cleaners and all kinds of stuff. That does boost the local economy to a degree, which is
you made a
great.
video about this recently.
Yeah. About what? About the luxury stuff?
Well, about foreigners, I guess not to give away kind of the clickability of the title and thumbnail, but you're basically saying like, are foreigners causing these problems economically in Portugal? And you went ahead and answered some of those things. And one of the arguments that you made was that the local economy is boosted by wealthier foreigners who come in and need some of these other services that they're essentially hiring Portuguese people to do that work.
Absolutely, because I see so many people in Portugal who are like, oh no, not so many. I mean, there's like a small vocal bunch on the internet, and they're not representative of the whole population. And they say, oh, we don't want foreigners, that kind of stuff, and that kind of attitude, because they're damaging, they're pushing up our house prices. And yes, that's true, but they're also, bringing a lot of input into the local economy as well. And yeah, you're right. I go into great length in the video about that. So I think it's a fascinating subject. It's a bit of a bugbear of mine because what's happening here in the Algarve as well, a lot more luxury developments happening. And as well, there's this kind of like resurgence, well, not resurgence, but like emergence of cool restaurants and cafes and things like that, which you guys have in Porto, so many of them. You've got in Lisbon, you've got in London.
And more coming.
Yeah. So it's happening down here in the Algarve as well. Lots more rooftop bars and really cool spots to be. So it's lovely to see that kind of, that kind of culture happening here as well. So
nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth noting that this rise of luxury real estate is still happening despite, I think it was either 2020, I think it was 2022, maybe it was into 2023 when the golden visa for real estate was removed. So there are real estate funds that people can invest in to get a golden visa still here in Portugal. But by and large, the complaint was that there were luxury properties being sold to foreigners for golden visa investment, but that no longer exists, yet the market is still growing year on year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that people are purchasing a second home in Algarve because of the weather, because of the golf courses around and those kind of opportunities, or are people actually like choosing to use it as the primary residence?
Yeah, I think when you look down at Quinta do Lago, which is, for everyone out there, is like the premier, most expensive spot in the whole Algarve. Many of those places are just empty, throughout the year, and people come down for a couple of years and a couple of weeks. And they don't rent them out and they're like 4 or 5 million euro homes. They're just having these sort of extra homes. Be nice to display that. So, yeah, but I do think that people are buying them, like obviously for investment purposes. They're looking at the market and saying, wow, this is a buoyant market and it's still good to invest in. So they're definitely buying properties for investment. There's obviously, external political issues and things like in the US, for example, a lot of people wanting to leave for all the reasons that people want to leave. In the UK, there's been an exodus as well because of the recent tax issues there. So I think it's a lot of that. People looking to come down to a more safe and secure country. And then obviously there's all, the bonuses of sunshine and sea and food and culture and peace, safety as well. I mean, I've just been to South Africa now and I'm glad to be back.
but you did make it back. So we're thankful for that. Okay. So are you seeing more demographically, are you seeing more families moving to Algarve right now or more retirees? Is there a mix? You mentioned earlier the digital nomads in Portimao. What are you seeing in terms of who's moving to Algarve at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think traditionally the Algarve from a foreigner's perspective have been, retirees. That's been the majority of people living down here. And still there's a lot of retirees here, which is great. But you're right. We have seen a lot of influx of smaller or younger families, and also digital nomads as well. And you can see that in the streets and people, walking their prams and things like that. And just the amount of meetups that these digital nomads have, like all the way across. From Lagos has a really strong group over there. Portimao I've mentioned before, and we've got this really cool group called Loft down here in Lolé, Olhão, Faro, and Tavira, LOFT, which is a really cool name.
Oh, okay.
And it's cool, yeah. So, and the girl behind that, she's fantastic. Flora, she's really, really motivated and keeps people, community ticking over. And it's lovely to see that kind of rich community being created for people. Because obviously a lot of digital nomads are fairly lonely, I would imagine. They arrive and then they can't connect. And there's more and more digital nomad events and things happening. So I like to try and keep in touch with those guys because they've got a lot of knowledge and it's exciting
How
to see.
How often do they meet up?
Just about every week sometimes. I mean, some of them are big meetups. Others are just sort of regular co-working, like 4 or 5 people co-working together in certain places. And so, yeah. So it's difficult to define the families moving in. Like I said, I just see prams in the streets and things like that. But, I do see a lot on Facebook and a lot of people talking to us as well. Younger people, because we operate a relocation agency as well behind the YouTube channel. And a real estate agency. And, we are helping a lot more, younger people as well these days. So it's not just retirees.
Okay.
But on the other end of the scale, I'm sometimes amazed to see like an 82-year-old couple saying, yeah, we want to come and move to Portugal. And I'm like, that's great. You guys are amazing, because it's hard.
Yeah. I mean, we're hearing a ton of that. I mean, really across the board, we're getting more messages from younger people in their 30s reaching out to us. But then there's also that 70s-year-old couple that's reaching out, never having lived abroad, and ready to face retirement in a foreign country. So I think it's really cool. It's a fun time to be in Portugal for sure.
Yeah, it is a fun time to Portugal. But obviously, when you're a younger family, the tricky thing is working here in the Algarve, especially because, and I think working in the rest of Portugal as well, you really need to know Portuguese before you come. So it's harder. But that's why the thing is, the digital nomads and a lot of families are coming when they're working remotely.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the way you can get around that. But it is hard if you don't have work.
Yeah, I would say, Kaylee and I have met a ton of people that have moved here from abroad, and the vast majority, and I'm talking like more than 95% of people, have a remote job, or they're self-employed or whatever. They're not coming here working for a Portuguese company. I mean, I only know a handful of people that did that. So yeah, the remote work is there. I think it's also good that the salaries are not based on the local economy, but they're based abroad, especially when people are coming over with US dollars. I wanted to ask you, before we kind of move out of the demographic thing, what are education opportunities like? You have a daughter that's school age. You also did a series where you went around to different satellite campuses of her school, I believe it was. And, what are the education opportunities like in Algarve, as we know there are international schools in the Metro Lisbon region and up here in Porto?
Yeah, I did a video about 3 years ago, I think, of private school or international schools in the Algarve, as well as local schools. And at that time, there were 16 of them in the Algarve, and which, if you compare that to about 23 around Lisbon, Cascais area. Yeah. So it's pretty much on par. But some of them are really small down here, and some of them are only primary schools. So there's a large group called Nobel, and they've got 2 campuses, one in Armancil, one in out at Porches, just further west. And yeah, I think they're all there. And there's CIV, which is in Villamora, which is the Colégio International Villamora, which is a great school. But it's always, whenever I've heard about people trying to get in there, it's full because it's so good. It's generally considered one of the best. And there's a couple of other, like small schools that start up, and then they sometimes change hands. But generally, it feels to me that and then also like with my own daughter's experience, that the Portuguese schools have a higher level of education, even more so than UK schools. So it's actually harder exams and things like that. The biggest challenge about Portuguese schools is the teachers are always on strike. And you never know. You never know when you have to stay home from work.
We were warned about this as well, which is one of the reasons why we didn't want to put Valencia into a public school. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge because, you got to and you don't know until the child gets to school whether they're on or not. And then you've got to rearrange your whole day and stuff like that. And not to mention the disruption of the kids, education. So obviously that's the primary thing. But then there's another sector, like we're talking about BGA, this school that my daughter goes to. There are quite a few online schools which actually meet physically every single day. So they actually have a collection of students, but they follow an online international curriculum, like United States curriculum or the UK curriculum, and they do exams online, etc. So that's something which is happening more and more. And I think because BGA is so big now, I mean, they've just grew to about 60. I think they've got about 60 different, they call them hubs all around the world, actually.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal.
I feel like they have exploded. I mean, we've gone around Portugal to different cities, and as I'm filming, walking around places, I'll just see BGA, written on the side of a building with their big, beautiful logo. And I'm like, here too, it's like really surprised me.
Amazing. And in Mozambique and in America, and they've got a few in England as well. So India. So the owner of the thing is called Tim Vieira. He's running for president at the moment. So that's quite fun.
Is it? I did not realize that. What party is he running with?
He's actually going independent completely, but he's running for president of Portugal, which is so much fun. That's crazy. Hopefully he gets it, because he'll just really turn things around.
And what's he running on? Like, what's his main platforms? Is it education?
Well, I don't know.
If you know, I don't know if you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just basically, I haven't actually listened to his pitch yet. I don't think he's made a pitch, because it's only in 2026 when they're running. So he's stated that he's running. But yeah, we should follow Tim Vieira and just try and figure out what his deal is. But I know him personally, so he's I know what he stands for. He's a good guy. So he's a good family values and serious entrepreneur.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess since we're kind of on the topic of politics right now, I wanted to ask you. You've seen for sure. You've seen a shift in the political scene here in Portugal, and not to ask you your political opinion per se, but what are you seeing right now when it comes to how foreigners are being perceived by Portuguese en masse and in Algarve? Because just recently a video came out showing a protest that was done actually several months back here in Lisbon and in Porto from the political group Chega. It was a peaceful protest, but it was like raising awareness against illegal migration here. Is that also a problem in Algarve? And like, what are people talking about essentially?
Well, to be honest, I actually would like to go and see news about that stuff. I haven't seen that. I haven't been following, because I've been out of the country for a month. So, and then it's been Christmas, and generally I'm fairly apolitical. But yes, we do see a lot of people. I mean, obviously everyone's talking about, sort of Indians, Sri Lankans, and whatever coming into Portugal, and some of them. I was actually just chatting to somebody in South Africa about it. She's a relocation agent as well, and she was talking about, because she's Portuguese, and she helps South Africans move to Portugal, and she was talking about some of these guys are running these scams, like people are just going around I don't know how they're doing it exactly, but they're just getting around, and it is illegal, and then somehow they just get through the system and end up being residents of Portugal. I don't think it's a massive amount of people. I think the majority of the people, and I don't know the answer to this question, but I would hope that they're generally legal. But yes, there has been a massive influx of Indians and Sri Lankans and things. And that's, I think, when Chega come into town and start talking about, keeping Portugal and being all nationalist, it's incredible how much the Portuguese have taken to that, and especially the Algarve, because the Algarve was totally Chega in the last elections. I'm not sure whether, I think they got about 15% of the vote, didn't they? Chega
Nationally, yeah.
Nationally, yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole of the Algarve was just red, which is quite interesting to note. But I haven't seen it personally. I haven't seen any anti-foreigner sentiment. I haven't seen any protests on the streets around here, but.
Yeah, so that's something interesting that I've found, and especially kind of this documentary. Well, I guess it was a report, I guess, on YouTube that this creator did, where how Portuguese people vote and how they treat individuals are two totally different things. Does that make sense? Like they might vote a certain way, but yet on the street, even if they let's say vote anti-immigration or anti-foreigner, you don't feel that, you don't get treated like that.
Yeah, they'll still be nice on the street. I suppose it's kind of like when you're on the internet and you're hurling abuse at somebody, and then you meet them in the street and you go, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?"
Right.
Maybe it's the same kind of thing. Yeah,
which unfortunately happens way too often in the YouTube comment section.
But I think what's interesting as well is when you're looking at the expat or the foreigner community in Portugal, which is now almost 10% of the whole country, which is massive.
Correct. Yeah.
A massive percentage of that are Brazilians. And people lump everybody together. So like a couple of wealthy Americans coming over feel like they're being victimized by this anti-foreigner sentiment. And generally that anti-foreigner sentiment is directed at a lower echelon of economic strata of people who can't work and who are using all Portuguese health and Portuguese social security and things like that. Whereas those other people, like the wealthy foreigners who are coming in, are generally using private health and things like that.
Private insurance,
private insurance, and they're not sucking money out of the economy; they're actually putting money into the economy. So it's kind of important to see which foreigners you're targeting and talking about. So because people just do it in a mass group, and it's just not accurate, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that you summed it up really well. Yeah, for sure. So cool. Earlier you said that you're behind the channel. You have a relocation company that helps people find homes in Algarve, and I assume other parts of Portugal. You want to tell us a little more about that and how the listener can connect with you in that regard?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll tell you a little story first. So essentially, I was just making videos, like we said, since November 2020, and people started asking me all these questions, like, how do I do this and how do I do that? And I'm like, okay, I'll research that and I'll get back to you. And then a guy said to me, hey, from Manhattan, he emailed me and said, hey, guy, would you like to jump on a call with me? I said, I'm too busy. I'm making videos and stuff like that. So sorry. He says, no, I'll give you $100 for 45 minutes. So I was like, okay, I've got time. So we jumped on and I started doing, consultation calls, just helping people to understand the Algarve and everything, which is great. And then that morphed into a guy saying, hey, I want you to drive me around the Algarve when I come over on my scouting tour. I was like, okay, cool, I'll do that. So we started doing that for people, got the license and all that kind of stuff. And we started doing tours for people. And then obviously people were interested in real estate and things like that. So I started referring to real estate agents that I knew. But that didn't roll so well because I couldn't always keep a handle on exactly what was happening with
Control.
them.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I'm not a total control freak. I just, you just need to know more or less what's going on. And if you get, when one real estate agent phoned me up, well, no, how did it go? Yeah, it was this guy, wealthy guy with about 4 million people on Twitter, right? And he bought a house here. And I spoke to him a year after, and he had the house for a year, and then he sold the house and went back to the States. So I said, hey, man, how's it going? Did you actually buy that house through the real estate agent? He said, yeah, I did. I was like, oh, that's strange. I didn't receive any commission. So I phoned up the real estate agent. Oh, yeah, no, I forgot. Here we go. And it was quite a packet of money. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is not working. And also I wanted to really be more in touch with our clients and make sure we could provide them our kind of service that we're proud of. So I partnered up with Nick Smith, and it gets real confusing because there's Nick Robinson, which is me, and then there's Nick Smith. Yeah, and often our clients are called Nick as well. So we're like, what's going on? So, and Nick Smith's done a fantastic job, and all our clients love him. And a new guy called Duarte, well, he's not a new guy, he's been with us for a year. And they're doing such an amazing job. All the clients are loving them. So essentially what we do is we help people all the way down the line, culminating in a long-term rental or a real estate purchase. So, and it's going really well. Like I was showing you, we sold, I think, about 15 houses last year, which is fantastic. So for a new startup, that's going great.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you're doing more than a house a month. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's great. Next year, hopefully we can double that this year.
One thing that you've said is that one of the reasons why you want to help foreigners get their Portuguese residency, why it's important to you, is that you believe that it helps drive foreign investment and bring new ideas into the country. Can you expand on what you mean by that? Because I think I agree with that statement, and I think that's a very exciting thing that not many people talk about. So let's hear from that.
Well, that's an interesting point. So, I mean, I don't know where I said that, Josh, because I just, what I love doing is I love helping people when they're relocating anywhere. And I actually said this in a comment yesterday on my YouTube channel, is that people are coming to Portugal anyway. I'm not advertising Portugal. I'm not saying, hey, come to Portugal. It's amazing. Like if you're coming to Portugal and you want to live in the Algarve, we can help you because I know that it's hard and I know that it's difficult and there's a lot of bureaucratic issues. So those are the ways we hold people's hands when they get through this process. And it's not for everybody. You know, a lot of people come, move over. After 2 years, they've left. You know what I mean? But I do think, the point that you made, I do think that foreign influence is always good in a country, because it's like when you go and travel out and go to Singapore, or you go to New York or whatever, you see different things and you get different ideas, and you're inspired by what other people are doing, and you bring that back home and you can put that into play. And it doesn't necessarily work back home, but at least you're trying to elevate society, if you know what I'm saying. So I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that an element of that, and you can see that in the Algarve. There's a group called the Algarve Evolution, which is a bunch of Portuguese guys in Faro who are doing great work. And they traveled a lot, and they're all tech-based. They're kind of like a spin-off of Web Summit. And they are really roping in a lot of, knowledgeable expats who are living here in the Algarve. And these guys love to volunteer, and they jump in and, do community meetups and things like that. So I really think that's helping locals, and it's helping the local economy to think differently. Because if we all stuck in our own little corners and we didn't see anybody from any other country, we'd still be stuck, wouldn't we?
Yeah, no, exactly. You said something that I feel like my audience is shouting at me to ask you a question on, and that is, you said that you've seen people that have moved to Algarve, they've lived there 2 years, and then they've left. Why have those people left? What happened?
Well, the people I'm thinking about were, it's actually a couple that were South African. And I was like, why? Why would you go through all that hassle? Because relocating is a big deal. Sure. Finding a new house, finding a new place for your kids or whatever, like understanding, and then go back. And I just think I think it might have been a financial thing. And then they weren't properly, they couldn't make money here or something like that. I think that's the only reason people would leave. Obviously, there's this, especially when it comes from South Africa, because I'm South African. And like I said, I've just been back there now, and I love my people. You know what I mean? And it's so wonderful to go back and just, all the things which are South African and the way people are, they're sort of super, not just entrepreneurial, but they got initiative. You know what I mean? They do stuff. And if something's wrong, they go fix it. Like, you'll see a crazy example is like a young guy in South Africa. There's a lot of potholes in the road because the infrastructure in South Africa is kind of, wearing down, and it's not as efficient as it used to be. And there are these young homeless guys who are filling up potholes and then asking for tips. And it's so beautiful to see that kind of stuff. And you don't get that kind of thing in Portugal. I mean, I don't want to be horrible about Portugal, but there's not a bunch of initiative in the Algarve from locals. And there's always problems, hurdles in the way of doing business. And things don't move smoothly. And things do take time here. And that's also the reason why a lot of us love living here, is because it's so slow. So,
give and take.
There's give and take. Yeah.
There's give and take. And for the listener who doesn't know, Nick is married to a Portuguese woman, right? And your kid's Portuguese, half Portuguese, grew up
totally
here
Portuguese.
her whole life.
Yeah.
I mean, she has a South African father, but she doesn't know. She doesn't really know of South Africa, right? Never spent considerable time there. So I feel like you're speaking from a place of love when you critique and give criticism to things in Portugal.
Absolutely, and I understand how it must look from the outside. Like, this foreign South African dude is like, ragging on Portugal, and it's kind of. I interviewed a guy on my YouTube channel who wrote a book called The Portuguese, and he is from England, and he also has a Portuguese wife, Portuguese kids, been living here for 35 years or something. And I was like, my man, how can you be so critical of the Portuguese? And he said, actually, my book did so well when I translated it into Portuguese. It did much better than the English version, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Okay, so if people want to connect with you, how is the best way they can connect with you?
Well, we've got a contact form on our website on algarveaddicts.com. And if you want to go directly there, you just go to algarveaddicts.com/contact. You just fill in the form and our team will get back to you. But easy.
Nick, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. We'll definitely have you back on. And I'm supposed to be on your channel coming up sometime soon when you guys make it to Porto. So looking forward to that. And you've got a new project coming up titled Portugal Unlocked, where you're going to be filming all over the country. So you're going to get outside of Algarve and do some more around the country. So we look forward to being a part of that. Thanks
so much, Josh. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yes, that Portugal Unlocked thing is really exciting. I just finished editing a video about Coimbra, and it's on my YouTube channel. It's going up this Sunday, so that's exciting. But yeah, thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate you having me on, and you guys are amazing, man. You and Kaylee and Sia as well. It's just wonderful to see how you guys are going. So always good to see you.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. See you soon.
Stay well.